What if the emptiest room you ever sat in was actually the forge of your becoming? Have you ever felt loneliness so heavy it seemed to press the air from your lungs? Most run from that silence, terrified of what it might reveal. Yet some of the greatest souls in history walked straight into it and emerged unbreakable. So we must ask, how can loneliness become the birthplace of your greatest strength? Let us enter a story that turns isolation into illumination. Follow a cartographer who discovered that solitude is not abandonment, but apprenticeship to yourself. High in the northern range, where winter lasts 9 months and maps end, stood an observatory made of black stone. Its only resident was a woman named Vera. She had come 10 years earlier to chart the uncharted peaks for the crown. One season became 2, then 10. Supply runners stopped coming. Letters returned unopened. The world forgot the mountain and the woman on it. Vera's only companions were wind, snow, and the endless turning of stars. At first, she fought the silence, screaming into blizzards until her voice cracked. She wrote letters she could not send, begging to be remembered. Months of unanswered echoes taught her a brutal truth. No one was coming. So she turned the observatory into a kingdom of one. She rose before the sun and walked the ridgelines alone. She learned to read the snow's breath, the ice's song, the mountain's moods. Each dawn, she inked new lines onto parchment the size of bed sheets. Her maps grew so precise that a single footprint could be traced for miles. Yet every night, she returned to an empty hall, fire crackling for no one but herself. Loneliness carved her hollow. She began to speak to the peaks as if they could answer. She named the cruelest ridge regret, the gentlest slope mercy. Some evenings she sat on the highest balcony and counted heartbeats instead of stars. The silence was so complete, she could hear blood moving in her veins. In that vast quiet, something began to listen back. It was herself. For the first time in years, Vera heard the sound of her own unfiltered thoughts. No applause to chase, no opinions to fear, only the raw pulse of who she was when no one watched. She started writing in the margins of her maps, not measurements, but truths. I am afraid I am not enough. I am furious at being forgotten. I still want to matter. The mountain did not argue. It simply held the words like it held snow, patiently, without judgment. Night after night, she wrote until the margins overflowed, and she needed new parchment for the self she was finally meeting. One winter, the silence grew so deep, she thought it would swallow her whole. Instead, it birthed something fierce. She began training her body and mind the way a general trains an army of one. She ran the ridges until lungs burned and fear burned with them. She fasted until only essentials remained. She sat motionless in -40 storms until she could quiet her shivering with will alone. The mountain became her merciless teacher, her only witness, her truest mirror. Loneliness stripped away every mask she had ever worn for others. What remained was not fragile, it was elemental. 10 years became 11. The maps were finished, rolled and sealed in copper tubes taller than a man. The peaks had no more secrets from her. One spring morning, the snow pulled back like theater curtains. Vera stood on the balcony and saw a thin ribbon of smoke far below. A new expedition was climbing toward the observatory. She felt the old panic rise first, an old reflex. Then something colder and stronger pushed it down. She was no longer the woman who had begged to be remembered. She was the woman the mountain had raised. She packed nothing but the maps and a single knife. She walked down the path she had not taken in a decade. The climbers were seasoned soldiers, sent by a king who needed the passes charted for war. They expected to find bones or madness. Instead, they found a woman in patched furs, eyes calm as frozen lakes. She moved among them without hurry, voice low, every word deliberate. When the captain ordered her to hand over the maps at once, she looked at him the way the mountain looks at wind. "I will guide you myself," she said. "The maps are not for sale, they are for living." The soldiers laughed until the first avalanche roared. Vera heard it 3 heartbeats before anyone else. She spoke one quiet command, and the entire company dropped flat. Snow thundered overhead and buried the laughter. When it settled, the captain stared at the untouched line where they lay. He never questioned her again. She led them through passes no army had ever crossed. Blizzards that should have killed them became mere weather. She read the snow's skin the way others read faces. At night, she sat apart, sharpening her knife, listening to the men whisper. They called her the mountain's daughter. Some feared her, all followed her. She felt no need to be liked, only to be accurate. Solitude had burned away the hunger for approval. What remained was pure capability. Halfway through the campaign, the king himself rode up with his guard. He had heard tales of a ghost woman who walked through death untouched. He demanded a demonstration of her skill. Vera looked at him for a long moment, snowflakes melting on her lashes. Then she walked alone to the edge of a glacier crevasse no bridge could span. The king watched, certain she would turn back. She did not. She unrolled one of her smallest maps, an intimate sketch of ice fractures. With 3 running steps, she leapt the void as if it were a puddle. She landed without sound on the far side, turned and waited. The king's horse reared in terror. The army crossed behind her on a path she had already chosen in her mind years before. When the war was won, the king offered her titles, gold, a palace at court. Vera stood in the throne room filled with cheering nobles. She felt the old panic flicker, the fear of being swallowed by noise. Then she felt the mountain inside of her chest, the vast, quiet hall, built by 10 years of loneliness. She bowed once. "I already have a kingdom," she said. She walked out into the spring night and did not look back. Years later, travelers still speak of the woman who walks the high ridges alone. She keeps no palace, no army, no name on any banner. Yet kings send messengers with sealed letters begging her counsel. She reads them by firelight, answers in single sentences, and returns the rest unopened. Loneliness did not break Vera. It introduced her to herself, and the introduction was permanent. She discovered that when no one is there to applaud, you learn what you can truly carry. When no one is there to blame, you learn what you can truly command. When no one is there to fill the silence, you finally hear your own voice, clear, unafraid, and unmistakably yours. That voice became her greatest strength. Now let Vera's mountain speak directly to the empty room you are sitting in tonight. Loneliness is not a punishment, it is an apprenticeship. The world will return when it needs what only solitude can forge. Until then, stop running from the quiet. Turn and face it like Vera faced the blizzard. Stop begging to be rescued from yourself. Begin the work only you and the silence can do together. Start with one deliberate practice tonight. Close the door, silence every screen, and sit with yourself for 30 minutes. No music, no scrolling, no escape. Let the discomfort rise. Write down every thought you have been drowning out with noise. Do this every night for 30 nights. Watch what happens when no one is watching. You will meet the parts of you that approval buried. You will hear the dreams that crowds shouted down. You will feel the strength that only grows in the dark. Solitude will strip away the borrowed personalities you wear for others. What remains will be lean, honest, and unbreakable. When the world finally knocks again, you will open the door as the master of your own house. They will not recognize the person who answers. That is the point. Loneliness is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of your sovereignty. Vera still climbs at dawn. Her footprints are the only writing on the fresh snow. She leaves no other mark, yet the mountain itself has changed because she walked it alone. You carry the same mountain inside you right now. The path is empty. The silence is complete. The apprenticeship has already begun. Stop waiting for company. Start walking. Your greatest strength is waiting at the top of the ridge you have been afraid to climb alone. Take the first step tonight. The snow is ready, the quiet is ready, and you, at last, are ready to become who you were always meant to be when no one else was there to see it.